I get transported back to another stage a long, long time ago now, back in 2010. It was a much smaller stage. It was a way smaller room. And back then, I didn't have the natural knack of color coding my outfit with the theme of the event. That's completely by accident. I'm not going to take any reference to that. Now, the reason why I always start thinking back to that time is not the nice feeling as being in the limelight, although 12 years of acting are going to get you addicted to that. The reason is what happened after I got off stage. And this was people coming over, proactively introducing themselves, saying hi, talking to me, and asking additional questions that my talk raised with them. And this is the moment where I figured out something important, which is when you share what you know, when you tell others what you can help them with, you can start building real connections. And that's the basis of personal branding, the way I understand it. My name is Vasi, because the full version is going to be hard for a lot of you. Besides the Polish speakers do great with Vasilena. I help B2B tech companies, service companies, founders, freelancers like myself, and generally great experts like all of you here to earn visibility through sharing their expertise. And doing that through personal branding and content strategy. And this is sort of what I'm going to talk about today. Now, I want to set the scene, and I think that this quote represents it really nicely. Before I get to the quote, I have to make that initial comment. I get very quick talking about topics I'm excited about. So fair warning, if there's something that you miss, if there's something that you need additional context on, there's going to be a resource link right at the end where you're going to get the slides, but also a lot of additional resources that I've combined for you. So back to the quote that I really love, and it goes like that. Times are bad, children disobey their parents, and everyone is writing a book. Now, I don't have personal experience on the parenting department. Maybe some of you can tell me after. But the writing book part feels very, very true. Especially in my field of marketing, it really does feel like everyone's writing a book. Now, turns out that this isn't a new problem, because the quote you see here was actually said in the 50th year before Christ by Marcus Tullius Cicero. Well, we're not entirely sure that he said it, but that's not gonna work with my flow of a talk now, so let's just gloss over that inconsistency. Now, yeah, this problem isn't new for sure. Being seen as an expert is a challenge we've been grappling with for ages, but I'd argue that now it's getting harder than ever to do that. And I think there are 3 reasons for that. The first one is that we are living and working in a really noisy environment. Everyone is shouting at the top of their voices. Some have microphones, which makes the job of everyone else shouting a lot harder. But in any case, the more voices shouting out there, the more difficult it is for any one person saying any one thing to get noticed. The second thing, and I think that's particularly relevant to experts like ourselves, people who work with their brain and their knowledge, is that we are working in a very fragmented market. I know that I'm not competing with 2 or 3 big marketing firms out there when new clients come over. No, I'm competing with any other of the bajillion marketing experts and positioning experts and brand experts out there. And this means that I can't create a clear and streamlined positioning strategy for myself because I can't differentiate against every single one of all of these people. So I need to take a different path, and I'll tell you more about the path that I choose to take in a little bit. But the third thing, and obviously we can't have a talk on marketing without talking at least a little bit about AI, although this is not going to be what my talk is all about, is that we're now losing to this I'll just use AI kind of attitude. I don't know about you, but for the last maybe 6 months, every time a new client comes over, they say, we already have a marketing strategy. Here is this 50-page marketing document that we'd like you to review and help us figure out how to implement it. And we're just going to pay for implementation, not the strategy work. And when I look at that, and I hear the laughs here, yeah, that's what's happening to all of us. When I look at that document, it's pages upon pages of AI slop that's going to create what Monica before me was talking about. You're going to sound like everyone else. But people think that this is what marketing actually is about, so we need to get with the times and figure out how to stand out. Now, my issue with a lot of personal branding speak out there is that we don't know how to bridge that gap. I call it the expertise visibility gap, just because I needed a nice brandable phrase to present to all of you today. But in the simplest terms, this means that you know and you can do a lot, but this is the best kept secret in the world. If you're not visible, if you're not presenting yourself as an expert, you're not able to go forward to the way where all of the opportunity lies. You can't get new clients. And even if you're building a personal brand from the perspective of a person wanting to get hired in a cool company, you're not going to get these opportunities now, or at least it's going to be way harder if you're just competing on the value of your expertise. If you have opinions visible online, hiring or getting hired is going to get that much easier. And in my space, when I'm competing for clients, if I'm visible and if I stand for something, my job of client acquisition gets way, way easier. Now, this talk isn't going to be like many other branding talks that I've heard out there. Because I'm not here to tell you how to generate a bajillion cool content ideas and spew them out into the world for everyone to see. Because having ideas and producing content is not the big issue we have. The issue we have is that we don't have a clear direction. We don't know what our personal brand needs to look like. And if we do know that, then going full speed in that direction is going to be easier. Now, here's what this talk is actually about. I think that we need to cover 3 areas. The first one is starting with a well-built personal branding strategy. The second is figuring out how to present these strategic pillars publicly through the topics and angles that we choose to speak about. And then, and only then, does producing content at a fast enough clip come into play. I'm going to obviously take you through all 3. Let's start with strategy. And the place we need to start with strategy is what, frankly, any marketer out there who is worth their salt is going to tell you. Start with figuring out who you're talking to. Who are the people whose attention you want to attract? And yes, the first and most obvious version of that question is who are the best experts out there, or the best clients, rather? The people whose work you want, the people whose projects you want to work on, the people who will obviously be paying the good bucks, because that's also important. Now, there are other components here, though. The first one of them could be, who are the people who can amplify my ideas publicly? These are other opinions leaders in your field who would be interested in what you have to say just because they're talking about these same issues and thinking about these same problems. The next group could be the people who may become project partners. In my work, I work with a lot of experts in adjacent fields. These are designers, developers, and I want to be in their field of view so that the same way that I go to them when I need design work being done or development work being done, they will come to me when they have a client who's struggling with their messaging. And this can also mean reaching the people who you want to be recommended by. These can be senior leaders in different companies who have a wide group of people around. These can be even people who manage communities of the type of clients you want to work with. It can be a lot of different things. And finally, and I'd even argue most importantly, because a big part of our work is to have fun doing it, is building connections with the people you want to hang out with and learn from, which is what I'd argue WordCamp is all about, so that's super topical. Now, when you think through these different groups, and in the resources I've provided, I have some trigger questions to help you better define each of these audiences. Making any other marketing decision when you know who you're talking to is going to get that much easier. Because what are the questions we usually struggle with? What are the different channels where we need to be present? Well, where are these people gathering? That's where you need to be. What are the different formats of content that you should be producing? Well, what do they like to do? Do they like to watch videos or do they prefer written text? Then you have your answer. What are the different topics that they want to hear about? It's all about figuring out who those people are to answer all of these questions. Now, since I wanted to make something a little bit more specific here, I'd argue that for personal brands, there are 3 specific channels that would give you the highest lift. The first one is long-form content. And when I say long form, I mean anything that's over the length of a tweet, essentially, on the unpaid version of X, are we calling it now? I think so. So this can be a blog that you publish on WordPress. It can be a newsletter that you send out through maybe WordPress as well. That's quite often the case. It's about having the space to present your ideas. And this is where the majority of that trust building that we were talking about earlier today when we were talking about product market fit is happening in the long form. An even better place to build trust is in one-to-one connection. And I have put here on the screen speaking, but that doesn't necessarily mean being on stage like I am now. It can be hosting a meetup or even participating in a meetup and asking a question to the speaker that's going to sort of make other people think. Now, the third and only third component of that whole thing is social media. And you can use this as a discovery channel where you get seen by a lot more people. It's essentially a trial version for them to sample your ideas. And when you can get their attention there, you want to move them to the long-form content that you're producing because that's where the actual connection happens. So we can think of these as discovery versus relationship building platforms. Now, if we know who we want to reach and where we can get to them, the next question is, what do we need to ask? To tell, not to ask. Asking has happened in the first steps of this. So the most important bit here for me is being clear on what you stand for. On the practical and more technical side, This is helping you with all the algorithms out there that are surfacing different ideas. Because the clearer you are on what you stand for, the easier it is for an algorithm to place you and to surface your ideas to others on that platform. But even more importantly, it's about the human. If people know what you stand for, you're going to be the top-of-mind expert when they need expertise like yours. And my favorite example, and I think that I have now contractual obligation to mention it when I'm speaking at a WordCamp, is my dear friend Remkus de Vries. When you think performance, or at least when I think performance, I'm thinking about him. And he's built his whole brand around that. And it's very easy for you to place him in that box. That doesn't limit him. That means that he's getting more attention that way. Now, if you're not sure what you need to stand for, here are a couple of questions, and I'm not going to read all of them. You can just take a screenshot. Just go to a friend, to a colleague, to a person you've worked with in the past, and ask them about some of these things. Ask them what you are all about in their mind. And this is going to be the simplest form of customer research you can do in the early days. Now, we know who we're talking to, we know where we're finding them, we know what we want to tell them, what we stand for. Now, we go into the how. And the way of doing that is figuring out what's your particular type of message related to your expertise. This is something that I like to call remarkable content angles. I'm going to sort of dissect that idea just to give you a clearer view of what I'm talking about. An angle, meaning a particular way that you see and do things. And I'm saying here content because I'm a content marketer at heart, but that doesn't need to be just about the content. It can be about the types of services you provide or even your work methodology as a whole. But to me, it's also largely what drives your content ideas. And when I say remarkable, that doesn't need to be something no one has ever heard of before. It just needs to be interesting and significant and somewhat unusual. Monica before me was talking about your unique point of view, and that's largely what I mean here. So I need to thank her for saving me a little bit of time. I hope you saw her talk. But even if you didn't, if you're thinking through this idea of remarkable content angles, they sound a little bit complicated because I'm using a term you're not familiar with here, probably. But the way to reach them is very easy. It's about self-examination. And the resources I'm going to provide for you, there are some trigger questions you can use to surface these ideas. Now, these can be the different types of beliefs that you hold. How do you want your industry to look, your market to look? What do you feel is important for you to provide your clients, and so on? Some of your ideas. What do you think is crucial in the field? What is crucial for a job well done? For me, these all look in some shape or form about creating a true connection with the audience. And the third option here is to examine your history, your personal story, and how that story, the ups and downs, have shaped you into the person that you are today and the type of expert that you are now. Speaking about all of these things is going to make you seem like a real-life human with real-life points of view and real-life experiences, which is what I'd argue we want in an expert we hire, in any case. So when you have these ideas, you're going to start thinking, okay, like what's the thing that's really the one or two or three that I want to focus on? And the first and most important tell is if this is something you feel very strongly about. Think about the last time you got really angry at reading someone else's post on LinkedIn. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. You can take this energy, probably edit out a little bit of the ranting around it and actually say what you think the real story is. And this is a great first step to figuring out what your content angles should be about. Then the second question is if this is a concept that is not that common in your field. Remember I made that caveat that remarkable doesn't need to be completely unique, but also this can't be the same story that everyone else is telling. So it needs to be at least a little bit different. Or your way of talking about it should be a little bit different. And this doesn't mean that you have to be counter-narrative for counter-narrativism's sake. It means that you just need to speak about the things that others might not know, might not think about, might not feel at this point, and see if it rings true for them. Then, is this a concept that your audience can truly feel passionate about or interested in? Because I have very strongly held opinions about the importance of orange cats in my life, but I would assume that people hiring me for marketing have completely different questions on their mind. And then, is this a concept that aligns naturally with your products and services? Because at the end of the day, I'm talking about personal branding from a marketing perspective. And if we're not leading people, at least gradually, to the point of view of learning what we can do for them, we're not doing a good job at marketing. The cool thing about this isn't just that you're going to have something cool to tell people and get their interest. The cool thing about this is that the more you share about your unique ideas, the more you create a bubble around yourself with other people who hold these same ideas to be true. And this is the perfect fit for customers. I have been vocal about the fact that you need a clear strategy before you start doing random acts of marketing for a long time. And this naturally leads to me, clients who know that this is true. I haven't had the need to dissuade someone from working with me, someone who, feels that they need the latest growth hacks and they need them yesterday. Just because if you see any of my online or offline ideas, you will be very clear that this isn't the type of service that I provide. So it serves as sort of a natural filter. And now I'm going to just glance over that last component because I don't think that this is the most important thing. But still, I'm going to talk about how do we build that into a consistent public presence schedule, let's call it, because I don't want to use the content marketing schedule. It sounds too corporate to me. And this is where I'm going to mention AI. And this is where I'm going to say that to what Tammy was talking about yesterday, we can use AI to create all sorts of stuff as long as we have the human in the loop. And as long as our ideas are our own and we're using AI as a multiplier. Now, this is a short list of my current approach into using the help of AI, but the ideas in my brain to create content for my personal brand's benefit. First, and I think if you take one thing from this list, this should be it. Set up a place to store idea nuggets that you can then weave into full content pieces online. The thing about this is not just that it makes it easier to not start from a blank page every time, but there's something weird that happens when you start recording ideas. Is that you start noticing more ideas. It's because you're training your observation muscle up to the point where you're going to have maybe 2, 3, or at a conference like this, probably dozens of ideas that you can then build into content marketing pieces. I personally prefer using handwriting and a notebook, which is over there in my bag. Wendy can verify that. And you can do it in any shape or form that feels natural to you, as long as you have one place and one place only where you have these ideas. Now, the next thing, and this is useful both for your personal sense of clarity and working with AI especially, is to have what I call foundational context documents. These are often called knowledge blocks as well. And these are the description of your audiences, a short overview of your personal positioning, your story, your experience, your brand voice, and you're going to find some exercises to create a consistent brand voice guideline in the resources that I have. These things are going to help you set up a project that truly feels like you and sounds like you with the help of our dear friend Claude. But it's also very useful to have that for yourself. And frankly, every couple of weeks maybe, I turn back to my ICP map and look at the different types of audiences that I'm serving from that initial list that I showed you, and remind myself who these people are, whom I've met recently, who exemplifies one of these personas, and try to put personal faces in there for my own benefit. Because turning back to all of these foundational ideas is how you can build consistency, not just in terms of publishing consistently, but in saying consistently the same type of things that are going to attract the right type of people. Now, my preferred method of expanding these idea nuggets into full content is to talk. And maybe you see that obviously, if I'm here, I have a natural tendency to talk. But it's not just about that. I like to just voice my ideas probably during a walk, a stupid little walk for my stupid mental health, as is popular to say on social media. And I talk through these ideas that I have in my mind, because this gives my AI a lot more context to work with and build from. And it also results in content that more naturally sounds like me, because I've already said it. The AI is only editing it and putting different parts of it together. But at the end of the day, it's my idea in my voice. And that's what's important. Now, going further, we have this one idea that I'm also really passionate about, which is using AI as a sparring buddy. What I mean here is that the value of AI, I don't think, is only in getting things faster. And I'm going to expand on that, but I want to first mention the last point of that checklist, which is start before you feel ready. The sooner you start, the quicker you're going to get used to presenting yourself online in a structured way. And it only takes one post, maybe with ideas you've seen here during WordCamp. If you do one of those, tag me. And this is the thing that gets the ball rolling. Now, back to my point about this idea sparring buddy that I like to use AI for. I think that the one person that I keep trying to channel when I think about my work with AI is this guy. And this isn't a great professor from MIT, a great technical leader or something like that. This guy is called Carlo Petrini, and he is the founder of the slow food movement. Back in the 80s, he organized protests in Rome against a McDonald's opening up right across the Spanish Steps in Rome. And the reason I'm thinking about him when I'm trying to start working with AI is that the slow philosophy isn't about doing everything at a snail's pace. It's about doing everything as well as possible instead of as fast as possible. And this is what we need to remember with AI, I think. Because having this back and forth with AI isn't an inefficiency, it's the whole point. because AI can be very helpful in strengthening our ideas and pushing back if we teach it how to do that. And in the resources that I'm going to share with you, there is a base version of that content sparing buddy that I use that I hope you at least try out and see if you get better ideas that way. Now, I want to leave you off with this. And this is a quote that's originally about public speaking, but I sort of redid it for personal branding. I hear that a lot of people are worried about personal branding, that it doesn't come easy, that it's a little bit cringe. But the truth isn't that you should be nervous, it is that you should be terrified. Not terrified from doing personal branding, but terrified that all the cool stuff you know is not going to be seen by more people. It's being terrified that your expertise and your best ideas are not going to help more people than you can just connect to directly. And I feel that personal branding, from the point of view of generosity, is the best way to do personal branding. So I hope I at least pushed you in that direction, and I gave you at least one thing to think about and one thing to try today. And as I mentioned, you can get all the slides and a resource library of sorts at this link. There's also a link to my newsletter if you're interested in what I had to say. Thank you so much, and I'd love to talk to you a little bit more during the break.